All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is DePaul Straub. I'm the Assistant Director for New Student and Transition Services here at Mines. And I have the pleasure of facilitating this welcome webinar series this summer. Today, we are really excited for this session. We are going to be having a panel with some of our lead peer mentors for them to answer all of your questions as you get ready for your journey at Mines. And we are super excited for them to kind of share everything and all of their advice with you. A couple quick housekeeping things just before we jump in. So we have a couple pre-prepared questions for our student panelists, and then we will open it up for open Q&A. So if there are questions that you still have, either about something that one of our panelists says, or that you just have generally and you want us to talk about, feel free to utilize that Q&A feature throughout the webinar and submit your questions. Please know if we don't answer it immediately in the chat. We did see it. We were just holding it, and we will do kind of a collected Q&A at the end with our students. But please know that if you submit it, we are seeing it, and we will do our best to get to everybody's questions. But just wanted to let you know that that is there, should you need it. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and jump right on in, and I'm going to hand it over to Eddie to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good day. My name is Eduardo or Eddie. I'm a senior here at Colorado School of Mines studying civil engineering. I'm originally from Denver. Quick fun fact, I got six siblings, so I come from a big Latino family. And yeah, nice to meet you, Eddie.
Hi everyone, my name's Emmy. I hope your summer's been super good so far. I'm super glad you're here. I'm going to be a junior this year. I majored in mechanical engineering, and a little fun fact is I love to ski, and I'm from Idaho.
Hi y'all. My name's August UC. I'm gonna be a junior this fall and I'm majoring in chemical engineering. I'm originally from the Arvada area, so really close to Golden State, pretty local. Um, and my fun fact is I love to snowboard and mountain bike and hike and just anything outdoors, really. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And yes, we have a really great panel today with lots of different experiences here at Mayan. So I'm excited for them to kind of share with you and be able to answer some of your questions. We are going to go ahead and jump right in, like I said, to those pre-prepared questions. But if you do have questions that come up throughout, again, feel free to utilize that Q&A feature, and we will get to those right after our pre-prepared ones. So I'm going to start us off. If you all could just share a little bit about what your first year at Mines was like.
I'll start. My first year at Mines was an experience. I think like in the best ways. Um, for me, like going to high school, I had a great time, had great grades. But I think like coming to Mines was like a very different environment. And it like challenged me in very like amazing ways. I got to meet so many different people. My friend group like was just from all over the world, all over this like states. Like I went to a school where mostly everyone's from Colorado, so mine was a great time. Challenged me. I got to meet, like, make new experiences, have a great time, live in a small city where you get to know everyone. So it was great.
Yeah, kind of on a similar note, my first year, if I had to describe with one word, was eventful. I did so many things that I like never thought I'd do, that I had always been super scared to do. I really like broke out of my shell just by like saying yes. It was just so fun to like meet so many new people, and like just really like experience independence for the first time. I moved out here from Idaho, so I was out here by myself. And then like making those friends and like really, really being independent for the first time was so cool and so fun. But kind of like Eddie said, it definitely was like a huge transition for me, especially coming from a smaller town, smaller high school where you kind of knew everyone. Going somewhere where you don't know anyone and you kind of need to like really grow into yourself is such a really awesome opportunity. Yeah, and mine's made it really easy to do that.
Um, my experience was pretty similar. I thinking back to my freshman year, it was really a great time. I found my people and I really fell in love with this campus and this community and all the opportunities that Mines has. But it was a change. That first semester, there's a lot of things that you have to adjust to when coming to school. And I mean, I was incredibly nervous coming to college. and moving in. I had never met my roommate before, but I just like the programs that Mines offered and the resources they had made it so easy for me to just connect with people and find what I enjoyed and find the clubs and organizations that I wanted to join. And the I remember my first time doing like M Climb and the events in the spring, like E Days. It was such an incredible experience. And honestly, I was really nervous for the academic transition as well. But again, the resources that Mines has made it a lot easier than I expected. The transitioning from high school to college academics. And so I'd say overall it was a pretty good first year.
Awesome, thanks, Josh. I think that provides a really good, like, kind of overview of each of your experiences, and now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of that. So we're gonna talk about what resources have you utilized the most on campus. So obviously recognizing that sometimes like things come up or you need assistance or help. So what resources have you reached out to or utilized the most in your time on campus?
Yeah, this is a great question. For me, I think, as I mentioned, like for me, the academics were one of the biggest things, and I think something that like Mines does really well is we have CASA tutoring. We also have library hours. So, and I also use office hours. So honestly, like any opportunity that like I was able to just like receive help or talk to a professor after class, like my professors and like those resources were like I think by far the one I most utilized. Another resource I also always used was the writing center because going to a STEM school where, you know, like your like our humanities writing classes are definitely going to be a change of pace from our regular engineering like core classes. It definitely does present a challenge, and I don't know what just happened, but yeah. So using that, like having resources from like upperclassmen supporting me, helping me write and just flesh out ideas is always great. So those two for sure.
On a similar note, I also use like Casa and those tutoring resources a lot, which was super duper helpful, especially when you feel like you're trying to adjust to so many new things and then you're like, great, I have to do school on top of this. It really isn't that daunting, especially because like you realize that the school really does want to help you. And having resources like Casa was really awesome and going to their just like open help hours. And then even your professors like always have like office hours and those are really helpful to go to as well. And then another shout out to the Student Health Center. um, I got really sick my first semester here, and that was really scary. Like not like being away from my family and like getting really sick and not having a car and like trying to figure out how to handle that. And the Student Health Center was a great resource. It's on campus. I was able to make an appointment really easily, and they were able to help me out. And I don't know what I would have done if it wasn't for that. So another really great resource.
Yeah, I have used everything that Emmy and Eduardo have talked about. Um, I ended up switching majors my freshman year, and so CASA, our advising, was really helpful for that. And again, with the academic transition, I really enjoy going to TA office hours. It's nice to have somebody that's actually gone through the class helping you out. And again, shout out the health center. That's where I get my flu vaccine every fall. It's cheap and or it's free and it's easy. And then another thing I want to shout out is the wellness center we have on campus. They kind of do a lot of stuff with like mental health and physical health and balancing work life and school and stuff like that. And so they have a lot of great resources, especially when you're transitioning to college and going through all that. I also want to shout out Blaster's Basket. I would always go to it's a essentially a place where we have on campus where you can grab food if you need it, and it's kind of like as needed. But I would go there whenever I was hungry or needed it before exams, and that was very nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. I think you gave a pretty good overview and shared some of the ones that we actually covered in some of our welcome webinars earlier this summer. And so students, I would definitely recommend if you weren't able to catch those, the recordings of those are available. I'm going to send our like welcome webinar site in the chat for you to find those recordings. But we have one on student health. There's one on CASA and all of their resources. And then a bunch of other like resources on campus as well. So I just sent that link for you to check those out if you didn't get a chance to join us earlier this summer. All right. So let's talk a little bit about getting involved on campus. So obviously everybody is looking for something to do outside of classes, and to find their place here at Mine. So can you all talk a little bit about how you got involved on campus?
Yeah, another great question, Paul. Thank you. For me, my main like right now, my main kind of involvement is being a lead peer mentor, and being part of the peer mentor program, um, which is essentially like provide support to all first year students and like beyond. It's a pretty cool opportunity where you get to like you're in a unique position to both teach a class and work with first year students like all throughout college. I've done this for 3 years now, so it's been like I guess definitely the most fulfilling part of like my time here at Mines. But the way I got involved was since we have to take an introductory course called CSM 101. I met my peer mentors. They were great and supported me a lot through my first semester. I met a lot of my best friends like on campus from there. So seeing that like how people like other students can like help encourage those experiences, support you, and just like be there like lend an ear, lend like just have a conversation with you was pretty awesome. And so yeah, like when I found out about that you can become a peer mentor, I just made sure to communicate that when applications rolled around closer to the end of my first semester. Um, yeah, I applied and haven't looked back since. I also say like just going to random events. Mine does a really great job, especially at the beginning of the year. If there are clubs, give free stuff out. Like I think like the first month. There's also like Celebration of Minds, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. Just all the clubs come together. Just if you find someone, meet someone, tag along to an event, even if you're like so unsure about it, or if you're not sure about like what's gonna happen. That's when the best memories happen. So yeah.
So, kind of similar to Eddie, becoming a peer mentor has been a really huge part of my college experience. And meeting my own peer mentors when I took CSM 101 and during Hell of a Welcome was like super foundational for me. I also met some people, like my camp counselors at Ordigger Camp, were also peer mentors, and they really spoke highly of the program. And so that just kind of like put that foundation down of like, I know I want to explore what leadership at Mines looks like. And that has always been really important to me. I'm also really involved in my sorority at Mines. I absolutely love being part of FSL. It has been just a really great opportunity to meet so many new faces, people in different majors, people who maybe have other leadership positions on campus, just like a really diverse group of people who like all come together and just can have that in common. And it's really fun to do all of like the fun activities and that kind of thing. So I've really also enjoyed being part of FSL. And kind of like Eddie talked about, Celebration of Minds is a really awesome event for that. And for all like clubs and orgs at Minds, you go to it really early on in your time. And that's when I like learned about free ride at Minds and ways to get outside and groups of people that can like really allow you to explore your passions and feel really supported with them. So yeah, that's kind of my experience.
Awesome. Very, I know that Emmy and Eddie also mentioned this, but I think the biggest way that I got involved was at Celebration of Minds. It's an event that happens where just all the clubs and organizations from like fraternity and sorority life to our free ride team and like club sports to the honor societies, they all go to the intramural fields and have like a booth there, and they're all just and you just go up and ask questions and meet people, join their group meets, and it just makes it so easy to get involved. And that's where I got involved with all of the organizations that I'm a part of now. Um, it's just a great space, and everybody's so happy and exciting. Another thing was actually M Climb. All the clubs are up on the mountain, and getting to see all the clubs up there is another great way to get exposed to see what's actually happening on campus. Another thing to shout out is I'm also a part of fraternity and sorority life, like Emmy said, and they host a FSL block party, which is a way to just where there's a bunch of free food, which is kind of what motivated me to go, where you get to see all the fraternities and sororities on campus. And throughout like the fall semester, clubs and organizations host a bunch of events to try and recruit new people, and just they're always tabling, and so just really just taking that opportunity and just going and say hi is that's how I got involved, and it's everybody's just so happy to meet you and talk with you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. All right, now we're gonna kind of go back to a little bit in a similar vein to the one we talked about with resources. So obviously we all know Mines is a competitive school. It's also difficult, right? And it's meant to be, and that's part of the journey here. And so for a lot of students, like, and I imagine for you all as well, sometimes you maybe encountered some struggles that you were either weren't expecting or kind of were experiencing for the first time. So if you all don't mind just talking about like maybe if you're comfortable sharing kind of maybe what some of those struggles were, and who you reached out to for help.
Yeah, for me, like I mentioned, I think it's like a continuous theme. I think the academic struggle was very real. I think just for myself, I think like the pacing was the biggest thing. But of course, like I mentioned, like office hours and tutoring, but I think like specific people were my peer mentors who were awesome and willing to like direct me to support my professors. But I think like the most, like I think like the key essential was my the friends I made in each class. Um, I think like just having like knowing that you have like friends and like people you know who are also like going through the same academic like rigor as you are, like it's super important to reach out and like something as simple as like after class like, hey, I didn't understand this, like can you like explain it to me a little bit, because sometimes hearing things from different perspectives like really does change how you think about things. So I always reached out no matter what. Like I was never ashamed to say I didn't know something, because the longer you take to say something, the more like the semester's not going to stop. So yeah, like after I failed the first test on my first calc my first calc class, very, like you start to like think about things in a different way. Maybe I'm approaching it. So I reached out to friends, we studied together, created study groups, and yeah, went up from there.
In a similar note to Eddie, building those communities is really what makes like times when you're struggling a lot easier. I found a lot of that community in my sorority, and I was so happy and like grateful to be able to like talk to upperclassmen and that kind of thing and have them kind of like really make me feel better about like what I was experiencing. Like for example, failing your first test can be a little jarring, especially since in high school we all probably were doing pretty good and felt like we really had a handle on things. And then you get here and you're like, oh, well, maybe I need to do some adjusting. And having a community of people who like really relate to that and are like, it's okay, like you're gonna be so okay, it's totally fine, is so comforting. When maybe like sometimes you psych yourself out and you kind of feel like the world's ending and you're like, oh wait, it's not that bad. So finding that community there was really nice. And then also talking to my peer mentors was huge. Like Eddie said, they really were like, I think the fact that they were like open and honest with our class about their experience, and like how like all the things they did to make it super awesome for them really benefited me like as a student, which I was so thankful for. And also in residence life, everyone has an RA, and that can be another really great like student mentor for you. And just building that connection with them too. Chances are, like maybe they're the same major as you, maybe they're in a similar club, but if not, chances are they've been in the same position as you are if you're struggling, and they can really help you out there. So those are definitely some people to consider if you ever find yourself maybe in need of like someone to talk to.
Yeah, I totally agree with Emmy and Eddie. Something that I struggled a lot with during my transition is homesickness. And so I'm also, something I didn't mention before is I have a twin brother. He goes to CSU. And even though he's only an hour away and my family's only 20 minutes away, I still was struggling with being away from home and being away from them. And the biggest thing that kind of changed my mentality around it is kind of just being open minded and buying into Ore Digger Camp. That was I was a little hesitant at first when I went to Ore Digger Camp, but it was such an incredibly meaningful experience, and the people that I met at Ore Digger Camp is really who I leaned on when I needed it and when I needed that community that I felt like I was losing when I was moving away from home. Is those people? I mean, my roommate who I've been living with for the past 2 years, I met at Ore Digger Camp. So that's the kind of connections you can make in that first week, and just really like buying into that. Something that Mines also offers is the counseling center. provides a lot of resources and support for students who may be struggling with the homesickness and loneliness and like being away from home. And I definitely used that during my transition, and I'm grateful for all the support um, they provided me. So I think just leaning on those people, and like Emmy and Eddie said, leaning on the mentors that Minds gives you and your order camp counselors and your peer mentors. They've gone through it before, and listening to them and telling them your struggles and what you need is, and just asking for help is the biggest thing to make it a successful transition.
Awesome. I think that's all great advice, and I appreciate you all kind of sharing those experiences. So we're coming to our last pre-prepared question. But I think this is a really big one, and I'm always interested to see kind of what you all's take is. But what do you think is the most important thing that students should know as they start their time here at Mines?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because obviously everyone has their own experiences. For me, I would say the biggest thing, like if I just, bottle up my entire experience and like hand it to someone, is just like I'd say like be okay with being uncomfortable. For me, I've always been someone who likes routines. I'm a very like I would say like a homebody. Like I love a chill night. Like that's kind of my vibe. And so when you like, go into college and like even Mines, which isn't the biggest campus ever, you're gonna be faced with experiences where like if you say no to something, like you might be missing out on like a really cool experience. Like I mentioned, like the unknown. Like sometimes the nights you don't expect to be the most fun are like the best nights to remember. Like things you'll be talking about in months, years on end. So just saying yes, like just say yes at least, I would say like at least once a day is like a good thing. Like for you, like, like obviously you understand yourself the most, but that was the best thing for me. It changed, like I went into it feeling homesick, very similar to August and probably Emmy as well. And so just like, getting out there and like getting my mind off the fact that like I'm going through a big transition in my life. And I was able to have fun and just enjoy college.
Okay, so one thing that I think is the most, like, single-handedly the most important that it took me way too long to realize is that Mines and everybody there wants you to succeed. There's not a single person at Mines who doesn't want the absolute best for you. If you think about it, like our job as leads and like DePaul's job here, like our job is to help you succeed. We really want you to do that. And the person sitting next to you in class wants you to succeed because they want to succeed. Everybody wants to help each other out. We really do like are a huge family at Minds. And if you ask someone for help, they will help you. Your professors, they want to help you. That's why they have office hours. They don't want to sit in their office and twiddle their thumbs. They want you to come so they can help you. Your TAs who have office hours, they're taking time out of their day as students because they feel like they have something valuable that they experience that they can help you with. So it took me way too long to take advantage of those resources and to realize how much everybody wants to help you. But if you like jump on that right when you get there, you at least try the clubs, try all the office hours, try everything once, you'll realize how much this campus is like trying to help you. So kind of understanding that. And then like Eddie said, like it does like it can get hard. Like you can get homesick, you can struggle with academics, but people want to help you. So say yes. If somebody says, "Oh, do you want me to like come do homework with you?" and you're thinking maybe like, "Oh, I don't want them to feel like I'm a burden. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that." Just say yes. Like nothing, it can't hurt anything. So let people help you, understand that everyone wants to help you and that you're so wanted and you're so important at Minds and that like everybody's happy that you're part of like the Minds family.
That was really great, Emmy. I totally agree with that. And I know both Emmy and Eddie said saying yes, and I totally agree with that kind of philosophy. And something that I like to say is that you get out what you put in. And that's certainly true with, I think, your experience at Mines, and especially during the welcome week. Um, just being open minded and trying to buy into the stuff like Order Camp and Hell of a Welcome, and really trying to just try new things. And like I'm an introvert person, and I was nervous for Order Camp, but I tried talking to as many people as I can, and that was tiring, but I'm so glad I did it because I made those meaningful connections, and just continuing to do that throughout your first couple months is really important. Inviting people to do things, saying yes, trying out clubs. I mean, I tried ultimate frisbee, and that's a really big club on campus, and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me, but I still tried it, and that's just because my roommate did it. And those kind of things, just like just going with people, inviting people, is really big. And something else that I like to tell people when they come to Minds is just remembering kind of to have a healthy work life balance. Sometimes at Minds, the academics can seem overwhelming and consuming, and that's because it is a rigorous school, and like it's an engineering degree, and that's for a reason. But just remembering to take care of your physical and mental health, and doing things that are fun and you enjoy, and spending time with people, and filling up your cup in other ways other than just the academics is, I think, the biggest way to make you enjoy your time here more and reduce burnout and just really have a fulfilling college experience.
Yeah, I think that's all like really great advice. Um, I think all of you really hit it on the head, like what I was going to say. But the only thing I would add is like kind of again that piece, recognizing that as a student in high school, a lot of times it's kind of competing to have the best GPA or to get into the best college or, you know, things like that. But I feel like Mines is a very different community where I always have to remind students it's not a competition. Like it's not like Mines has a certain amount of degrees they can give out. So utilize like each other, work with each other and like get each other to that finish line. And I think that is like a shift that I would definitely recommend and making as you come into Minds is not thinking about it as I need to do better or compete with XYZ, but how can we work together to all get towards that goal? I think that's a really big like piece there as well. All right. So I am gonna turn it over to you all's Q&A. So if you want to submit those questions through that Q&A feature, I see we've got a couple already that I'm queuing up here. But I'm gonna start us off with one that I always like to ask that I think people are always interested in, specifically around living in the residence halls. So what is one thing you brought with you that you never used? And what is one thing that you wish you would have brought that you didn't?
I have a good answer to that one. Um, so I always thought I was really big into board games, and so one thing I brought was a lot of like your regular standard board games, but I never used them. But not because I didn't like I stopped liking them. It was just because other people had way more cooler board games, and so yeah, I had like a whole bin of like board games that just stayed under my bed. And one thing I wish I would have brought. It gets hot in the summer. The summer months are hot. I lived in the traditional halls. Those can be rough. So I brought a fan, and I think that fan stayed on like the entire first like 2 months. So yeah, that's my answer to that one.
August,
Um,
you want to go?
yeah, I got it. Something that I brought that I didn't use a lot, and like this might be different for you, but it is I brought one of those Brita water filters, and I never used it. I know a lot of people did use it on my floor and people that I know, but admittedly, I just drank the tap water. But so that's something that I didn't use. Something again, I also lived in the traditional halls, which I have no regrets about. The community there is great, and like people just leaving their doors open and hanging out is awesome. But it gets a little warm during like September, October, and then in like April. And I did end up by the end of the year, I had like me and my roommate had like 5 fans going, which might have been a little overkill, but starting off the year with just the one was something I wish I had brought more of. So yeah, kind of similar to Eddie.
Okay, this might seem kind of silly, but I brought a I yeah, I brought a steamer and I never used it. So unless you like really need to steam your clothes all the time, maybe consider. And then I lived in Maple, so we had air conditioning that was pretty good, but it still gets really hot, especially in the bunk beds. And I'm sorry for another person saying to bring a fan, but like bring a fan and like one that can like be up high, like by your bed, because like mine was like down on the ground and like that's great, but when you're sleeping, you need some cool air. So consider like a box fan. I know that's like a really boring, redundant answer, but like you need a fan.
No, I think that's important and helpful, so I appreciate it. Again, I want to just emphasize too that this is y'all's opportunity to get any questions that you still have in the next couple weeks leading up to um, moving in and starting your time here at Mines. So feel free to ask anything about living on campus, about orientation, about kind of the experience of these three panelists in general, anything that you are curious about. This is your time to ask. I saw we got two questions really quickly. If one of you wants to talk to kind of what fees typically look like or dues look like for fraternity and sorority life, or for other clubs, I know they asked about like free rides specifically. But if y'all could talk about kind of like organization, like costs, things like that.
For sure. Most of the sororities do like you do have to pay dues. And some of them it depends on just like which chapter you like end up joining, kind of how they structure it. Some of them do like quarterly or like you could do it like per semester payments or like annual payments. And you can do it that way. And then some of them have like a different like amount of like that regulated payment and then you pay like per event as well. It just depends on like really which chapter you join and you can hear a lot about that, especially at like the FSL block party and stuff like that is a really great place to get your info there. And then for clubs, I know like free ride, it's pretty chill. So it's just like you pay your dues by like I think just like one time per season. And it's pretty chill. It's pretty much like all group me based and you just kind of communicate with the president that way.
Yeah, I can speak more to the fraternity side of things. The dues do range differently between the seven or so organizations we have on campus, but I would say like a rough estimate is like 500 to $1,000 a semester is what I would say. And again, it's up to individual organizations. As for the other organizations on campus, all of the ones that I'm a part of are like the academic organizations and stuff like that, are all either free to be a part of or the due, like the membership fee or whatever is like $10, $15. I think some of the more expensive ones are like club sports, which have like gear and stuff and need to have like game away games and stuff like that. So they may cost more. But I also know that a lot of organizations are willing to work with you about the fees and costs and just being open to having that conversation.
I should have added this about free ride and stuff, but I think the dues like typically are not very expensive for those types of like activity-based clubs, like not like club sports, like he was saying. And then that also can depend like if you want to get like club gear, like jackets and backpacks and stuff, is where that'll differ.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Okay, Adam asked a really great question. Obviously I recognize for a lot of students, this is their first time either living away from home or first time living with a roommate or potentially multiple roommates. So can you talk about, do you have any tips for living with roommates?
I can start. Oh, sorry. I can start there. One thing to note is everybody's gonna have a different roommate experience, no matter what. No two people are the same, and no two people paired together are going to be the same. So I'll try to generalize this as best I can, but something that I um, want to put out there is just it's important to recognize that you might also not be best friends with your roommate, and that's 100% okay. Um, and something that I did that I really benefited from with me and my roommate is we kind of had a conversation about like what boundaries we wanted to set and stuff like that. When we started, like what time would we stay up late, or like what time would our alarms go off in the morning? Um, just stuff like that, where like having that conversation at least opens it up and makes it easier to live with somebody, especially if you haven't lived with someone else before and shared that space, and also just respecting your roommate's space. Even though it's a dorm, like you each have your own specific space, and recognizing that it's theirs and not messing with it and giving them their own space.
Yeah, on a kind of similar note to August, it's like a huge adjustment living with somebody, like sharing the same bedroom is really a huge adjustment. So like that's definitely we don't want to downplay that. But it is like August, it's super important to like discuss those boundaries and not even necessarily like framing them that way, talking maybe just about like your house rules or like what you and your roommate want your space to look like. Talking about even just like being transparent with each other, like, hey, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up at this time goes a long way and just kind of just letting them know like where you're going to be, what you're going to do. And I lived in a suite in Maple, which was really awesome. And so having like three other people instead of like and having like kind of like what felt like an extended space like with my suite mates, being able to like hang out with them and we would all kind of mingle throughout our space was really, really nice. Feeling like we could like spread out. But then also like just being transparent and also knowing that like August said, you don't have to be best friends with your roommate. It's super awesome if you are, and that's super fun. But you can also just cohabitate together really well, and communicate like what you're comfortable with. Um, really just and it is part of just like exploring like independence and living alone for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys said everything. I think the one thing like to for sure mention is like if you feel like a conversation may not be in like your zone of expertise, there's always a roommate agreement. So there's like a guided kind of discussion, like a little contract that you can always like sit down and talk to with your roommate. But I think the most important thing is just be open, come with an open mindset. I was very nervous when I first like moved in, like I don't know if this person is complete opposite of me. I'm not sure if I do something that like most people don't find annoying, but they do. Like, just be considerate. Also come in like just start brainstorming like things you like you want to set a boundary on, or like also looking within yourself. Like, what are things I can like work on or like be willing to give up in order to like have a like I guess great time. And I also know that like with housing. They do ask you a few questions about like your preferences. Be honest about those. Like take your time to fill those out. Those do matter because down the line if there's something that like comes up and be like, oh yeah, like let's look. Maybe I changed or maybe something about me. But like the more information you can provide and share, that's what leads to like a more transparent conversation.
Sorry to keep adding at the end, but this just came to mind. When you're sharing a space, especially like maybe if you guys aren't in like the same friend group and that kind of thing, letting them know if you're gonna have people over, or maybe if you're gonna be gone for a long time, or that kind of thing is just a really safe and smart thing to do, just so that they feel like they like are in control of their space as well. So just being considerate of each other in that way, and letting them know like if there's gonna be people besides you and them in your shared space.
Awesome. I think all that is great advice. I've got another question for you about the M climb. So does the 10-pound rock that you take on the M climb have to almost exactly be 10 pounds, or is it okay to be a pound or two less?
It is absolutely okay to be a pound or two less. Nobody's going to weigh your rock. Um, I think the most important thing to consider is what you're most comfortable carrying up the mountain. So if you want to bring a rock that's maybe a little bigger and you're fine with that, sure. If you want to bring a rock that's a little smaller because that's easier for you, that's what I would consider. But there's no hard cutoff or anything.
Another tip concerning your rock selection, make sure it's something that's not impossible to hold. I kind of struggled holding my rock on the way up, just because of the shape. So pick something that's close to home and meaningful to you, but also that's easy to hold.
Yeah, no, make sure, yeah. Like I saw someone carry a 50-pound rock up and they were struggling. So you gotta just, yeah, like understand your limit. Like you're walking up a hill, it's like 2 to 3 miles. It's like running a 5K. Like, and it's so windy, it's gonna be hot. Like, yeah, be mindful of that. Obviously, like you're gonna leave the rock up there, and I think that's one of the most like the more I think like beautiful traditions that Mines does. So keep in mind, like yeah, make it have meaning to you. And just like yeah, just be considerate of that. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely agree. We're definitely gonna let you take your rock regardless. So no fear there. But yeah, I think the 10 pounds is more of like the tradition piece of it. So yeah. I don't have any other questions at the moment, so I'm going to leave it open just for a second or two, or for a minute or two to let people ask any other questions. Again, this is really your chance for our students to kind of weigh in and help give you answers to the things that you're still wondering about as we get close to move in and how welcome and all the fun things. Um, Before we jump into that, why we are leaving that open, Emmy, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit if that's okay. And I'm just gonna ask you to talk a little bit. I don't think we've talked a lot this summer about CSM 101 and kind of how that works, and what that course is all about. So would you mind just talking a little bit kind of about what that is?
Yeah, so as a lead, my job is actually to get to work on CSM 101 and customize it to really support our incoming classes here. And so the purpose of CSM 101, it's Colorado School of Mines 101. It's everything you need to know to be successful. And we really want to give you all this information. As I was saying earlier, we want to help you. Our job is to help you succeed here. And this class is a huge part of that. So it kind of has some sections. We kind of start out with like immediate student skills that you'll need to know to succeed. Kind of like about how to like navigate campus, what resources are available to you. We really encourage you to join campus organizations and to find your community. And then we also work on a lot of like self-discovery of like who do I want to become in this chapter of life at Mines, kind of where do I see myself in the future, doing some career and major exploration, which is really beneficial. And then we also try our best to equip you with some life skills, like some financial literacy, as well as some interpersonal skills development and things that you'll need as you move throughout your career and professional life. And aside from the course content, you show up to class once a week. It's a 50-minute class, one time a week, and it's taught by a faculty mentor and your two peer mentors. And so you meet those peer mentors during Hello Welcome, and they end up being kind of your point people for whatever you might need kind of when you start at Minds. And so having that kind of point of contact where you see both of them once a week for a whole semester is really a great launch pad for getting you going and sending you off kind of into that spring semester when you're established and ready to take it on kind of by yourself. So CSM 101 really serves as like a really great starting point for you for and a foundation for you to build on. And the class itself is really just to kind of give you the building blocks to build on the foundation that you want to set for your life at Mines.
Awesome. We did get a question kind of while you were talking, Emmy. And this one is a little bit more general, kind of going back to thinking about what students should pack or bring with them. So I know we talked about like specifically at the residence hall, but thinking about what you all packed for mines, kind of more generally, because obviously I know a lot of students don't necessarily bring their entire closet or all of their belongings, right? So what would be like the main couple of things that you would definitely recommend bringing?
For me, this might be like obviously it's very different from like packing like a bag. Um, just like I love fidgets, so I always pack my fidgets, made room for those. And then honestly, if you have any like small, like quick card games, like get to know you kind of games, I have one that like I actually worked on it in high school. It was like this like get to know you kind of questions that I developed, and I always brought that around with me, like something like that. As far as like more practical things, um. Definitely having enough clothes. I know it's they're definitely like I don't know, like your first time if it's first time living alone, like you're gonna have to get adjusted to like doing laundry consistently. So those kind of things. I'm not sure if that answers it, but those are like things that like I made sure I brought.
I know there's probably some people wondering about like what clothes and stuff like specifically to bring. So my recommendations are definitely like a pair of boots that are like snow boots, winter boots. I love my Blundstones, that you can just throw on, like if it's just snowed, and you don't want to be freezing cold walking to class. That's a really great option. And then it was hard pill for me to swallow that I didn't need to bring every single piece of clothing in my closet. So picking the best of the best, the ones that won't make me have an outfit freak out before class. I can just like wake up, throw on. I know it's gonna work. It's gonna be good. Um, and like just like bringing the basics, the things that are like my tried and true clothing items. Definitely bring like a warm, comfy jacket, something waterproof with a hood. You need to wear a hood if it's snowing on the way to class, otherwise you will not be happy. So definitely boots and a comfy jacket with a hood.
And the wind is pretty bad. It gets so
Yeah. Something that I saw a couple people on my floor didn't bring that I think is really important is a like a hamper or laundry basket of some kind. And the hall, traditional hall that I lived in, the laundry was in the basement and I was on the third floor. So, and there's not an elevator, so you're gonna have to be carrying your laundry down and up those stairs. So something that's easy to carry makes it easy to carry. Maybe something that you can put on your back or something like that. Um, Something that I know they have on there, but just like can't stress enough is like solid shower shoes and a shower caddy. I mean, you use it so much, like you might as well get something that can hold all your stuff and it'll work well for you. For the residence halls that have the communal restrooms, something else that I think is important to bring is decorations for your room. It sounds like a little vain, but it's really important to make the space your own and like bringing decorations. Like I didn't bring enough and my room was kind of sad and like it didn't help with me transition, but like bringing stuff from your room from home and things that are meaningful to you that when you look at will make you happy is like don't take for granted how important that is to have that stuff in your space. Um and I want to stress the winter gear again. I know some of those things are bulky, so if you're able, like bringing that stuff maybe in like October and like kind of doing a wardrobe shift midway through the semester is a good thing so you can have more clothes. But it does get cold here, it does get windy, and it snows and rains, and it does take a fair amount of snow to cancel class. So you should be expecting to walk to class in snow. So just remember that.
All right, I know we only have a couple more minutes, but we do have two more questions. And so I want to make sure that we try to get to these. So the first one that somebody asked was, what was your favorite class your first semester or your first year at Mines?
I can talk about this. So I'm a Mechie. This might be a class that you end up taking in your well, I'll talk about actually design one. I love design one. Getting to learn like the scope of things that you can do for your project is so wide. You can really like decide anything. And so a lot of groups like you can go totally different directions. And in my group, I decided that I really wanted to learn how to use an Arduino, which you do as a mech, you take a class that teaches you how to use that your sophomore year. But I decided that I wanted to explore it then and now because I didn't realize that that was something I would get to learn later on. And so my design one professor was not like an expert in that. So it really was like on me to kind of explore that and learn something. So it was my first time like learning something independently, not like in a class of people who are also all learning the same thing, and then having it like really show up in my work and like making that project. We did an automated greenhouse, which was really fun. And I loved like doing the coding for that and really trying to figure out how to make it work. And now after taking the Arduino class, I'm like, oh, that was so easy. But it really was a huge challenge for me. And it when I finally got it to work, I was like, hey, maybe I can do this engineering thing. And it was really nice.
Um, my favorite class or kind of like classes was chemistry one and two. Um, that might be kind of a hot take, but it's my favorite classes. The thing about these classes, they have a built-in lab, which I really enjoyed the Chem One lab because it and just Chem One in general because it really felt like it kind of like built you into like what science is like at an engineering school. Like it starts you off pretty basic, and then like it gets you into some pretty cool things. And like the same thing goes for the lab, and you learn some pretty cool techniques. And I really like chemistry, so maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. But those would be my two favorite for my first year.
For me, it was I will be quick. It was a environmental Earth and Environmental Systems class. That was like definitely like the most interesting class I've ever had. I did a quiz on rocks, where I got to study rocks and look at cool rocks, learn great things about rocks. Do a few labs where you use compass, use these cool tools, learn about like rocks, do field trips to we did a field trip to Red Rocks and up to one of the North Table Mountain. And then we also like spent one morning in the river, um, looking at rocks. But it was just really cool. It was like a great experience. Got you out there. It had a built-in lab similar to chemistry once a week. And then lectures were always super entertaining. So yeah.
Awesome. Love it. I'm gonna combine this one with a different question that we just got to. What classes did you all take that had the most people, and how many students were there?
Um, the biggest two classes that I've taken was the chemistry one and two classes, which were we have like two really big lecture halls. One of them, this one fit like 180 some students. Um, so that was the biggest one, and then physics one is also big. So it's a pretty safe bet to say that like the largest classes are going to be your first semester, like general gen ed classes, and then as you get more specific, it'll decrease, and just the way it'll taught will change a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it definitely depends on majors. Like there's a few majors, like mechanical is definitely the biggest major on campus. In civil engineering, we're kind of like, I don't know, we're in the middle to lower bottom. But yeah, no, like August said, you'll start off most of your beginning classes will either range from like 30 to 100. But then like yeah, like second year you start getting into more major specific. It starts to like dwindle down to about like 30 to 40. There's also there are registration tools that like you'll get access to and like be shown in CSM 101. We'll like show you like the class size, how many people are in there, their sections. There may be the same class, different sections each day. And you'll be able to see there like how many spots are left. But yeah, like I would say like your more general classes will have like 20 to 30. I have classes that have 15. So yeah.
And Eddie kind of touched on this. Mechanical engineering is like the biggest major at mine, but even as I've started to get into my major specific classes, they're not unreasonably large. They're still like, I mean, they are bigger than probably like a civil class would be, probably around 40 people. But you still are able to get that like one-on-one experience with like your peers and with your professor, which is really nice. But then, like August said, definitely like physics one and chem one are going to be your biggest lectures.
Awesome. All right. And then the last question I have for you all. Somebody asked about the bathrooms in the residence halls, and I know you all lived in a variety of different hall styles. So can you talk a little bit about this student's going to be in Weaver, if that's helpful context, but they're trying to figure out like what they need to bring. So like what supplies are supplied by mines and what kind of stuff is on you to bring.
I would say I lived in Maple and then I had lots of friends in Weaver, so I can kind of talk about this a little bit because they were both like suite style. You got to bring pretty much everything. Bring your shower shoes. If you want bath mats, bring those. Make sure you bring a shower caddy, bring all the things you need for that. I think I said towels. Make sure you bring your own towels. And those kinds of things, just so you can be really self-sufficient in there and you'll be sharing that space with people in your suite. So it's important that you have everything you need.
Yeah, I can speak to those of you who are living in residence halls that have the communal bathrooms. Um, Pretty much the only things they supply for you are soap and running water, and a shower curtain. So everything else you have to bring. Um, and they'll bring toilet paper for the restrooms and stuff like that. But all your toiletries and just like Emmy said, you have to bring pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. From what I've heard, it is the hall style bathrooms are like cleaned for you, and some of that obviously is supplied as well. And then the suite style bathrooms that you share either within a suite or that are kind of a Jack and Jill, you are responsible for cleaning those and kind of supplying your own stuff as well. So that's a good way to look at it.
It does have a shower curtain in it, and you can pick up toilet paper at the front desk as you walk in if you ever run out. But I think like once weekly or once every other week, if they catch you at a good time, there are some very lovely ladies who come and like replace your toilet paper, and it was always nice to see them. So.
Yeah, and then sorry, DePaul. On that note as well, like Emmy mentioned it, like if there's anything that you think you need or you may be missing, like your residence hall may also have it. Like you can check out in the trads or the traditional halls. We have a communal kitchen as well. I there's a few times I didn't have a pot or something that I needed for like cooking spaghetti or boiling spaghetti or boiling my noodles. And like, they have that there. They have spatulas, like anything you could think. They have, if you have carpet on your floor, they have vacuums. Just like if you don't, before you go buy something, because obviously you're in college, um, ask. Like it never hurts to ask.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, thank you all so much for sharing all of your wisdom and advice. Really quickly, I just have a couple reminders for everybody. So we are coming up on just a few weeks out from Move In and Hell of a Welcome. And we are coming up next week on our final welcome webinar of the summer. So that is going to be next Tuesday, August 4th at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. And we're going to talk about all things Hell of a Welcome, Move In, residence life, orientation, all those fun things. So definitely be sure to check that out. Also, make sure you're completing your Order Your Next Steps checklist in your admissions portal. And also a big one here is, especially as we're getting like really close to all of those things, checking your Minds email. And that is going to be really huge. You'll also receive an email from our office sometime this week with your specific Hell of a Welcome orientation schedule. So be on the lookout for that as well. Um, but that I also, the only other reminder I would give you, I would ask right after we finish this webinar, you should see a link pop up or it should take you to fill out the survey for these welcome webinars. We really do appreciate your feedback and it's really helpful for us in thinking about what topics we want to offer each summer and kind of how, or whether or not these are effective for you all or kind of what we can be doing better. So I would encourage you, please complete that survey. And we really do look at it and appreciate that feedback. And so if you wouldn't mind just taking 2 or 3 minutes to do that for us, we would greatly appreciate it. But with that being said, that is all we have today. Thank you again to our panelists for joining us. As always, if you have any questions or anything that we can help with, feel free to email us at nest@minds.edu. And we will see you next week for our final webinar. Thanks, everybody.